Welcome to GP's Pangeo Perspectives, your guide to global growth, where we explore opportunities and ideas that come with global team building, business expansion, and compliance for companies everywhere.
Hello, everyone. Pangeo is an idea inspired by the 300 million-year-old supercontinent, Pangea, when the Earth's land masses were united as one. Today, the world is reuniting once again, as businesses everywhere seek opportunities beyond borders and boundaries. So let's explore the future of business with voices from around the world as we look for success we all can share. Welcome to GP's Pangeo Perspectives, your guide to global growth. In this episode, we introduce Jane Elizabeth Redden, the partner for talent and platform at Albion VC, and Kevin Smith, co-founder of Collide and Santa Capital, to help answer these questions. I'm your host, Thomas Merchant, Director of International Brand Management at GP. Now let's get started. Jane, welcome back. It was an honor to have you on our Pangeo conference last fall, where you really opened our minds talking about capital, human capital, and saying that to scale fast, companies need to have a clear process for building their global teams. So let's dive in a little deeper today. Where does the process actually start? And what do you see as the future of global growth?
Thomas, it's fantastic to be back. Thank you so much. I think I've got the best job in the world, actually. I feel really privileged because I get to spend time with the founders and CEOs of the next generation of our world-leading companies. So Albion VC, we're a $1 billion fund, and we invest in B2B software companies and health tech companies at early stage, and then we help them to scale. And a year on from this sort of genuine opening of the remote work environment as being something that was, still quite new, and we were still figuring it out. And what me and my team are looking at in terms of growth acceleration is really how we get those businesses to perform and sustain performance. And so I think the topic of conversation now has moved from how we hire the best talent and develop the best talent. And they're very important topics, but how we get those businesses to perform when they're remote first or when they're working in a hybrid environment. And what's really interesting about that from a leadership point of view is that I notice, and we've got empirical evidence to prove that the highest performing companies who are still scaling fast manage this tension of structure and agility. So they've got this ability to be able to you've got to be able to stay agile, and you've got to be able to adapt to the context. But at the same time, in the same vein as my comments last year, without the necessary structures in place, and I don't just mean for hiring, I mean for communication, I mean for decision making, I mean for driving autonomy, for understanding how things are changing in customers, in markets. It's really important to think about the structure around role modeling as a leadership team when we're in a remote or hybrid environment. And it's also really important to think about the structure to do with bringing the culture to life. So what are the values that are being imparted in that environment? All of those things show up in high performing teams. And so that's what we're focused on working on with our companies.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wonderful answer. I love the agility part, to have the structure and the agility. So listen, what I find interesting is that being growth minded is almost as much a mindset as it is a process, right? So Kevin, it was great to have you on GP's Pangeo Predictions last fall with us, and thank you for being here this time around on Pangeo Perspective. Since you focus on growth itself, maybe you could tell us how people with a growth mindset approach business differently, Kevin.
Growth mindset's a really interesting one. It's talked about a lot. I mean, Carol Dweck from Stanford, I think, captured it probably better than most when she talked about improving in a meaningful way your intelligence, your creativity, and your character. Now, that's pretty difficult to do. So how do you translate that? Because that's not like learning a new language or learning to play a new instrument. I think Jane touched on it a little bit, that there's this point around flexibility here. Having an openness to learning new things. We're in a world where businesses go from startup to significant faster than ever before. We're condensing the business world. I helped a business IPO after trading for 18 months. If you go back 30 years and put that out there, people would think I've been drinking something crazy. But it is possible. So we are condensing the leadership's life, and we're condensing the life of a company. So flexibility and resilience, yes, but a couple of things mainly is great leaders are great followers. So people who can see and hear and properly listen. When I look at a lot of investment decks, and you see a lot of investment decks, you see some amazing companies, we often ask ourselves when we think about the founder, we look at the degree of coachability. Now, that's not an arrogant thing to say, because I certainly wouldn't pretend to know the answer to everything. And these are super bright founders. But their ability to take on advice, support. I met some amazing founders who, I said before, they might end up going on to be the next Elon Musk, but I wouldn't want to be in the same room as them for very long.
Right.
So that ability to build a relationship in this condensed business environment that we're in now, that for me shows the ability to grow and that expansion of character, creativity that Dweck talked about.
Yeah, and Jane, you talked a little bit about the agility. It sounds like it's that agility and flexibility versus the rigidity, and not being able to keep that open mind. At GP, we've pioneered the global employment platform, right? To give business leaders that freedom to think and grow beyond borders, which is so important. Kevin, have you seen that kind of thinking take hold?
If I go back a few years, I used to really admire the Israeli tech ecosystem because the companies there were so quick to embrace globalization, partly because of the size of the market, but partly from a mindset point of view. Whereas to some degree, if you sit in the UK, for example, the market's okay. So you can probably survive enough and you can make enough of a business to actually not feel like you have to expand particularly hard. I think that's changed. I think now with the onset of Jane talked about the ability to scale so quickly. And I did business with people, multi-million-pound business with people I'd never physically met. So the ability to do that now is just off the scale, and this omni-channel approach to working and the market is here to stay. I also think the role of cities has got something to do with it. There's a lot of cities now supporting their local companies in terms of internationalization. So there's a lot more help out there. When I helped set up programs in London with the Mayor of London, when Boris was mayor, I've done stuff in Manchester, I've done stuff in Aberdeen. I was in Leeds in the north of England the other day, who set up an AI alliance with a German region. So a lot of cities now are recognizing that they actually want their local population companies to expand internationally because it's just good for the city. So it isn't just the companies themselves that are having the great ideas and the impetus to go global. They're being actively encouraged to do so from the environments in which they're in. Creating
opportunities for everyone to share it. From an economic standpoint, from a professional standpoint, it's a win-win all around. Jane, you were just named one of the top 100 women in the startup world. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Startups are famous for shaking up the balance of power, right, between companies and employees, which is now being challenged at companies of all sizes around the world. How has the shift from a company-centric approach to an employee-centric approach changed how work gets done globally?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I've been in tech and in early stage for 25 years. And I will say that, 25 years ago, all of the founders that I worked with and all of the leadership teams had IQ. And we, if there's something in my ability to be able to bring to bear a new wave of leadership, I call it leading with grace. What I can see in today's organizations is there's this prevalence of EQ. So IQ exists as well as EQ. And Kevin, you talked about that really beautifully as well. And I'm getting to your answer, in tomorrow's organizations, and this is what I've started to research, I believe that tomorrow's organizations will be high on TQ. So IQ, EQ, and TQ. And that's really where there's a focus on embedding trust. So those organizations that can have a high trust quotient will be higher performing. And really, we're bringing together, I think, this combination of performance and humanity. And what we're seeing is I've actually unpacked trust and turned it into something that we can use to measure teams. It's really hard to do that because trust is usually a sensation or it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And so we've got a list of indicators that we can use as a way of giving our teams an ability to be able to get a picture of where they sit today on their trust quotient or trust index, we call it, and then how they can cultivate trust in their teams. And this is really all about, as you say, kind of finding this balance between what it means for the company to have a team come together and what it means for the individual. And here's the interesting thing. So if you permit me, I'll unpack this. They've got these 6 areas. We call it like a sort of a pizza of 6 sort of slices that all nestle together. And they consist of authenticity, healthy conflict, getting stuff done, accountability, bounce or resilience, and shared purpose. And what I think is really interesting in that is that sort of, it was almost like the top one, because if an organization, a team inside an organization has this shared purpose, which is where individual needs are being met, the company needs are being met, but actually there's this idea that we've got a mission, we've got a collective mission where we're all able to subjugate our own individual needs in favor of this bigger thing that we're all fighting for. We have an ability then to become very enlightened as an organization. So the companies that are enlightened have this resilience, they're braver, they are future facing, they create forward momentum.
They're all aligned.
They're all aligned and then they're able to work in a distributed way without needing to, have this command and control, old way of leading businesses. And so, that's how we're approaching it. And because I'm a data geek and I love building frameworks and tools, I'm always going to be trying to find ways to bring science to the art of leadership.
I love the phrase "leading with grace." I think that's fantastic. I think from an employee-centric position, we're hearing some new words spoken. I worked with a colleague who was adamant that people gave of their best when they felt safe in the place in which they played in the organization. And we're seeing words now that employees are talking about: kindness, fairness. Yeah. These are really emotive, powerful words.
They're human, right?
Exactly. Your point about humanity, Jake. This is humanity in the workforce, and particularly as we're sort of in this period now when hybrid is the norm. We've still got people raining against it in certain ways. I think the businesses that will attract the best talent and the most centric are the ones that make their employees feel safe. And that's a wonderful position for them to feel.
That's super important, Kevin. Yeah, thanks for chiming in on that. Feeling safe, feeling a part of, and aligning with your company, its vision, and the people you work with make all the difference. So this next question is for both of you, and it's a great segue because what talent-centric strategies can HR professionals adopt to support their global teams and ensure they perform at the top of their abilities and really feel part of the company's vision and growth? And so let's talk about process and culture here. Kevin, over to you.
Process, to some degree, this covers this, but I think what happens early in a recruitment process is utterly, totally crucial. In 2 ways. First of all, the right people being involved at the right time with the conversations, particularly with senior people, to get across the culture of the organization as part of the recruitment process. Really, 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 really important. And what I've found, having hired, thousands of people over the years, I forgot sometimes that actually the more senior the person was who joined an organization, the more difficult they found it. We kind of expected wrongly that these people would, what's the phrase? They'd hit the ground running, they'd be out and about, they'd be doing what they did before. Well, no, that wasn't the case. It wasn't the case because their inbox wasn't full of stuff. Their phone wasn't ringing off the hook. They felt completely and totally insecure because they weren't as busy as they were previously. So we had a process where we would set out and we would fill their diary for 3 months. So before, they would literally walk in the door and their diary was full for 3 months. And that was hard to do, but that was internal, that was external. We'd mix it up. But I think that early stage piece is utterly and totally critical. Yes, there's buddying systems and all that kind of stuff, but what happens early in a recruitment process sets the tone for almost everything that happens after it.
A professional boot camp to get them up to speed. I love it. Jane, how about you?
To add to Kevin's really good comments here, I thought I would just talk about this thing that we call the performance temple. and it's set in the context of, again, making sure that you've got to adapt to the size and stage and what your strategy is. So everything that our companies do is aligned to what we call the 5 levers. And those 5 levers really set out what the core strategy, the milestones that need to be achieved before the next funding gate. And in particular, from an organizational point of view, again, in that early stage, so I'm talking C to Series B, we know that helping equip the teams or an individual to be clear on what their decision-making accountabilities are, what their core deliverables are, how they're embedding feedback and learning as an individual. So it comes from that person, that individual into the center, as well as aligning from the center back out to the individual. And then role modeling or really embedding and bringing to life the values and drivers that exist in an organization. We find that that's a very important way, again, to get that connectivity to an intrinsic motivator, as well as just what their paycheck is.
Kevin, is it safe to say that a dynamic global talent pool, one that's beyond borders and boundaries, of course, has fully arrived? Is the dream real for both companies and employees?
Sort of.
I love that. Sort of.
But I suppose we're seeing evolution, though, aren't we? Because as communications and the ability to do business and communicate with people improves around the world, we're seeing shifts. So, for example, I worked in an organization that had a back office in Delhi and back office IT in Bangalore. Mm-hmm. But the costs are going up, the ability to retain people is going up. So what we're actually saying, we're seeing a disbursement of this. So yes, we're still using hubs where a lot of stuff around educational establishments and top universities, but the best talent you could possibly want could be sat in a jungle in the middle of Africa, frankly, and you could be accessing that person from anywhere. So I think from an employee point of view, this is a real revolution. This is an incredible evolution of the way in which we do work globally. People are spreading. They can be anywhere, literally anywhere. Which is amazing because actually, as long as you've got communication, you can get a fantastic role if you have the right talent. Of course, that creates a slight challenge for the employer, who is quite nice to focus on a hub because you've got lots of people there. If you've got to find the 1 or 2 people who specialize in AI and they're in Paraguay, that's not quite the easiest thing to find. So in a utopian world, we are leveling up the world in terms of its ability to do work. That's amazing utopian vision from a wider global employment point of view and a wealth creation point of view. So this is seismic in terms of the change in the way in which a world population and wealth is dispersed. But that creates a unique challenge for businesses who had their life a little bit easy before by just going to the big hubs.
Yeah. And sort of democratizing opportunity for everyone everywhere.
We find that simply just saying we're going to hire anybody from anywhere doesn't actually work as a talent strategy. However, here's what does work. Hiring someone with time zone proximity is much more sustainable. So they can be anywhere geographically, but if they're on the same time zone or if there is a decent overlap in the working day, then the teams are able to sustain the communication and collaboration required in order to push boundaries.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So these talent pools that are, across the globe, and we want to source them because we can get the best talent, like you said, Kevin, in parts of the world that are, keeping in mind the time zone, Jane, because I think that's important, but could be, thousands of miles away. Do these talent pools lead the growth, follow the growth, or is it a bit of both?
I think it is inevitably a bit of both. When I worked for a while in Central Europe, based out of Prague, and I remember some US companies prior to those countries coming into the European Union coming across because of the talent pool that was there. Particularly, I remember Black & Decker, the organisation, coming and setting up a big operation in the Czech Republic. And they came because of the amazing talent pool that was there, superbly well educated and the like. And inevitably, there's still significant link towards from education to talent pool. We can't just get away from that. But I do think the world is shifting. It's shifting at different rates in different places. But the need to get closer to your clients, closer to the opportunities, is definitely driving where people are wanting to place their talent. If people are thinking about opportunities, everyone, of course, talks about the US, India, and China, whereas the US is the most competitive market on the planet. Yeah. And the other two have unique cultural challenges, but amazing talent pool. So I think it's still a question of making it fit within the business objectives that you've got. I think if you're driven wholly by where the talent pool is, I think you'll make a mistake. If you're wholly driven by cost considerations, completely, totally mistake.
Yeah.
Yep.
And new talent pools are appearing. Mexico, Uruguay, some amazing new talent pools appearing, which is great. And we just need to make sure that they get nurtured and dealt with in the right way, and not just as low-cost jurisdiction.
Yeah, I love that. We talk a lot about talent magnets. So if there's an individual who's got a phenomenal reputation on a global stage, quite often in tech teams, that actually a real motivator for a group of engineers or a talent pool of engineers, they'll want to go and work with a specific individual. Same in health tech, actually. They'll go wherever that individual is because of the project that they're working on and the person and the reputation that they have. And so bagging one of those into your organization then gives you access to talent sitting anywhere in the world, but very motivated by working with that individual on that particular project.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You've got it's connections, it's people, it's the network.
Exactly. And then the other thing that happens that we see a lot is schools of talent born out of organizations that have hyperscaled. Mm-hmm. IPO'd, and then they've dispersed, and then you've got other founders that have been born out of this upward vortex of a highly successful business, and that creates talent pools of its own. So it sort of spawns talent as a school
that you go out and try to snatch up for growth.
Yeah, but they've got this experience which they're then able to share with others, and so it spreads virally, irrespective of where they're based.
No, I love that. Yeah. Okay, so let's flip back a little bit over to the business planning side, where we're also seeing a shift from location-centric or market-centric thinking to opportunity-centric thinking. When you can build your teams anywhere, can you actually build your growth plans around where people share your vision and passion, which would be, it's an ideal thought. What do you think, Heather?
I think it goes back to what I said before. It's people's growth plans tend to gravitate to where the largest potential markets are. But exactly to Jane's point, it's acknowledged that you are going to, particularly as a founder, as a tech founder, you're going to have to spend some time geographically in a location where you want to scale. Yeah. As much as you can do a lot of things remotely, there is inevitably a pull on a founder's time. But actually putting the right senior person in place to lead a new market is utterly, utterly critical. And you see too many people shipping something from HQ over to try and launch into a new market because you think that's going to be the way in which culturally you land in a new market.
Experience from the company and all that. Yeah, those expat days are.
They're gone, and they may have the company script off by heart, but they will not. Exactly to Jane's point, which is a great point about the talent magnet. They'll not be able to land into these fantastic new markets. They'll not be able to hire a group of people around them really quickly and get the vision, because the vision is really important. And that's why, again, going back to a previous question, spending the right amount of time early with a senior hire, embedding the vision, making sure that you get the right person with the right mentality and the right ideas who believes in what the company is trying to do, then you work out which markets you land into. But I also think that there's a bit of an obsession, with US, India, China. The world's a big place.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of work in the Nordics, for example, which is a fascinating place to do business. People just automatically discount 95% of the planet when they're thinking about the opportunity which they want to go after. When actually sometimes you can actually test out new markets in an interesting way by going to markets which are either more closer to you geographically, or you think will be closer to you culturally until you make the big step into those big China, India, US opportunities?
I remember one of my previous jobs in manufacturing and automotive industry. They used to send from HQ these sort of, seasoned executives to open a new country, didn't speak the language, didn't know the culture, had the stats of the country's, market and business, but inevitably they didn't go well.
They crushed
and they were brought back
yeah.
years later. So yeah, I think that is gone. Jane, do you have anything you want to say on that point before we move into the right mindset?
No, go for it.
No? Okay. So we'll throw this one over to you, Jane. The right mindset, some companies may not have it, right? But many of them don't have the right assistance or guidance either, right? At GP, we try to bring our technology and expertise together to be a global guide for our customers.
Amazing.
What do you think are the key qualities that companies should look for in a global growth partner? Because you can't do it alone, right?
You definitely can't do it alone. Well, I mean, we could answer that really, easily by going back to the TQ, IQ, EQ. That's a great filter to start with. But businesses are still run by people.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I love about your organization is that you understand that, people are still the best asset. And so that human relationship where, I care about you and you care about me, and together we both care about our collective interests of the organizations that we represent. All of that combined creates an environment where we do want to go above and beyond when we need to. Where we're able to be authentic in the relationship that we can have as a human, as well as trying to achieve the common and objective goal. And getting all of that on the table, I think, is really important.
I've always strongly believed that when you build that rapport, when you make that connection, and culturally, sometimes you have to meet people in their model of the world, right? You have to really make those connections. But when you do that and you have authenticity and you build rapport, people will go the extra mile. People will do just about anything.
And the thing is that it's just, in this, obviously I'm flying the flag here for female leadership. But, anybody that's identified as other, that has been my reality for most of my career. It's not just about the gender conversation, but, if we can be open-minded to understanding the human, rather than just, rather than, being aware of our own bias and being prejudiced toward, to only seeing the world as we see it, I think is a recipe for disaster in today's world and tomorrow's world.
We need curiosity. We need
tolerance.
When in doubt,
ask, or assume positive intent, or, people are working really hard to try and do their best. And listen, and that's not, I'm not talking about, sometimes we've got to make tough decisions about people who are just not performing. We can't compromise performance, but I do think that, let's say, this combination of performance and humanity is a really important start point for building great relationships and great partnerships.
And we nurture that performance through relationships.
Yeah,
I love it. So Kevin, you have seen, many stories of success in this new landscape. Instead of kind of sharing a case study with us about what a particular company has done, could you describe the success of a future company in this new world of work? What does a success story look like for them?
When my business partner Kirsty and I set up Collide, it was done with a view to answering this question. I think we're entering the era of the collaborative company.
Okay.
A lot of businesses talk about collaboration, but what does true collaboration mean? We're seeing so many challenges faced all over the world, and I don't genuinely think companies can solve these together. I get so irritated now by seeing decks where there's the standard slide that talks about who the competition is.
Yeah.
So, and obviously that everyone you see is better than the competition because of whatever and all that kind of stuff. I'd much rather see a slide saying these are the people we want to partner with to solve the problems.
Yeah.
So those companies that collaborate, partner, seek alliances, again, partly for global growth, but partly because better together is better now. So for me, the absolute blueprint of a company. Now we are going to enter the age of the collaborative company, thankfully. And I think that it will, those that can collaborate well and truly and honestly will thrive in this new connected world in which we're in. Yeah. And actually, it'll offer huge opportunities for their supply chain, their customers, and their people to get involved in collaboration.
Yeah, I love that. The competition doesn't have to be your foe. It can be your, somebody who complements how you work and what you do and what they do, and lift everyone up together. Okay, so one last question for both of you. Having a global vision for growth can mean many things all at once, right? You're scaling your business, you're scaling your culture, and scaling how you support your global teams. What's the one big piece of advice you'd give companies that are ready to embark on this global vision for growth? Who wants to go first?
Well, I'm going to play teacher's pet here. You might want to read this one.
Great book.
Well done.
So I thought I'd be a bit of a SWAT and read your chief exec's book before.
You are the teacher's pet.
Thank you very much. So absolutely ask for help. Don't try to be too brave. We go back to this growth mindset. We're seeing the world in one case huge and accessible, in the other way condensed from a timing point of view into a much shorter space of business life.
Right.
And I think that therefore goes back to the growth mindset. Ask for help, grow, listen, and learn. But I think it's a fascinating world. And as I go back to this point, collaborate. You will grow and you will expand by collaboration.
Yeah, I know your different themes are kind of all come together there with that. Just don't go it alone, right? You need help. We find in so many of our, when we go to different trade fairs or conferences, people say, if I only knew you existed. Yeah. We tried to move into this market and it was, the red tape, it was a disaster. A ton of money was spent and we ended up pulling out. We didn't know that your kind of service existed.
Yeah.
And so, don't go it alone. Jane, what are your thoughts?
Oh, make it meaningful.
Make it meaningful.
Yeah. We spend so much of our lives at work. My identity is wrapped up in who I am when I'm here working. And it has to mean something to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's true of all of us, right? And together, if we hold that as our core and central mission as a leadership team with an organization, we're going to build something which is good.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great sort of note to end on, being doing something that's meaningful, because all the things we've talked about collaboration, about aligning within the company, about working with the competition, all these different things.
Using partners like you.
Yeah, exactly. To make it happen, it's a win-win for everyone. I want to say a big thank you to Jane and Kevin for generously offering their time, expert knowledge, and experience to guide us through our exploration of new mindsets and models that will take us to the next level of global growth. And thank you to our listeners. We hope you gained some valuable insights from this conversation. And if you enjoyed the show, please follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, so you never miss an episode. I'm Thomas Merchant, and this has been Pangeo Perspectives, presented by GP.